On July 17, 1919, the Longview race riot, incited by a Chicago Defender article reporting on the lynching of Lemur Walkers, occurred in Longview, Texas. Ultimately, the National Guard and Texas Rangers were called in to restore order. 21 blacks and 9 whites were arrested. However, no one was tried, and racial tension quickly resolved over the following week. But this riot was not an isolated incident. It became the second of 25 riots that occurred in what later became known as the Red Summer of 1919. Local issues aside, the Red Summer riots were motivated by feelings of intolerance and prejudice caused by the Red Scare and widespread determination to restore blacks to their pre-war status. And these issues set the stage for the Longview Riot of 1919. The inclusion of African Americans in the Selective Service Act of 1917 provided a threefold opportunity in which they could possibly convince whites that those who fight for their country should be given all rights and privileges of a citizen, possibly raise blacks' estimates of their own values and capabilities, and encourage them to demand more civil rights and liberties. African American draftees entered the Army by the thousands, but more often than not, black soldiers were victims of unfair treatment. Due to the 24th Infantry's role in the 1917's Houston race riot, many whites were reluctant to have large numbers of armed blacks in one area. Authorities even kept the 92nd Infantry trainees from loading ammunition and refused to train them as a unit in order to prevent blacks from dominating one camp. 92nd and 93rd Divisions would be the only black units to see combat. Both units basically given to the French, served with distinction, with several members receiving Distinguishing Service Crosses. If these soldiers risked their lives in vain, W.E.B. Du Bois answers in his essay, Returning Soldiers. We are returning from war, the crisis, and tens of thousands of black men were drafted into a great struggle. For bleeding France and what she means, and what she has meant, and what she will mean to us and humanity, and against the threat of German race arrogance, we fought gladly and to the last drop of blood. For America and for her highest ideals, we fought in a far-off hope. For the dominant Southern oligarchy entrenched in Washington, we fought in bitter resignation. For the America that represents and gloats in lynching, disenfranchisement, caste, brutality, and devilish insult, for this, in the hateful upturning and mixing of things, we were forced by vindictive fate to fight also. But today we return from the slavery of uniform in which the world's madness demanded us to don to the freedom of civil garb. We stand again to look America squarely in the face and call a spade a spade. We sing, this country of ours, despite all of its bitter souls have done and dreamed, is yet a shameful land. It lynches, and lynching is a barbarianism of a degree of contemptible nastiness unparalleled in human history, yet for 50 years we have lynched 2 Negroes a week, and we have kept this right up through the war. It disenfranchises its own citizens. Disenfranchisement is the deliberate theft and robbery of the only protection of poor against the rich, black against white. The land that disenfranchises its citizens and calls itself a democracy lies and knows it lies. It encourages ignorance. It has never really tried to educate the Negro. A dominant minority does not want to see Negroes educated. It wants servants, dogs, whores, and monkeys. And when this land allows a reactionary group by its stolen political power to force as many black folk into these categories as it possibly can, it cries contemptible hypocrisy. They threaten us with degeneracy. They cannot be educated. It steals from us. It organizes industry to cheat us. It cheats us out of our land. It cheats us out of our labor. It confiscates our savings. It reduces our wages. It raises our rent. It steals our profit. It taxes us without representation. It keeps us consistently and universally poor and then feeds us on charity and derides our poverty. It insults us. It has organized a nationwide and later a worldwide propaganda of deliberate and continuous insult and defamation of black blood wherever found. It decrees that it shall not be possible to travel nor in residence, in work nor in play, education nor instruction for a black man to exist without tacit or open acknowledgement of his inferiority to the dirtiest white dog. And it looks upon any attempt to question or even discuss this dogma as arrogance, unwarranted assumption, and treason. This is the country to which we see soldiers of democracy return. This is the fatherland for which we fought, but it is our fatherland. It is was right for us to fight. The faults of this country are our own faults. Under similar circumstances, we would fight again. But by the God of heaven, we are cowards and jackasses if we, now that the war is over, we do not marshal every ounce of our brain and brawn to fight a sterner, longer, more unbending battle against the forces of hell in our own land. You return from fighting, we return fighting. Make way for democracy. We saved it in France, and by the great Jehovah, we will save it in the United States of America, or know the reason why. Black soldiers returned, expecting fighting for worldwide democracy, earned them a larger share of the democracy at home. Instead, they returned to a nation zealous to maintain racial status quo. Red Scare fearmongers led by General A. Mitchell Palmer worked the nation into a state of deep suspicion and fear of the unknown. A post-war black community, desiring the rights of full citizenship, threatened the well-established system of white superiority and black inferiority, and whites quickly reacted in order to keep the black community at the bottom rung. In 1918, mobs lynched 58 African Americans, and that number increased to 77 in 1919. Yet, many African Americans were determined to stand against the violence. Dr. Calvin C. Davis and Samuel L. Jones of Longview stand among them. Longview lies about 100 miles east of Dallas as a center of activity for Gregg County. In 1919, it had a population of about 5,000, which almost half were black. According to the Dallas Express, Longview lies like a pearl in the middle of a fine forming territory, which stretches for about many miles in all directions. Its white and colored citizens have for the most part been able to work together in peace, and as a result, both peoples have prospered. As a further result, the colored population has good churches, schools, halls, and homes, and other things to facilitate their happiness. Indeed, Longview's community enjoyed an economic and cultural vitality that many whites in the community did not. Businesses such as Quick Grocery, Britain's Market, and cooperative stores run by a local branch of the Negro Business League offer competition with their white counterparts. And while the economic prosperity of black businesses was a point of contention with the white community, it was not the direct cause of the Longview race riot. On June 17, 1919, Lemur Walkers was allegedly discovered in a white woman's bedroom. He was immediately arrested and imprisoned, but the following morning his body was discovered nude and quote-unquote bullet-ridden near the railroad tracks 4 miles south of Longview. On June 22nd, Samuel Jones, local correspondent for the Chicago Defender, bringing the paper to inmates, visited with several of the prisoners. Jones later recalled the testimonies. 10 men came to the jail and got Walters and took him away. The mob jammed 5 handkerchiefs in the lad's mouth, had a key to the jail, unlocked the door, and when they had taken the prisoner, they locked the door with the same key. Dr. Calvin P. Davis and Jones formed a delegation of 11 men and went before Judge Ernestine S. Bromelt to quote-unquote, well, according to Jones, place the matter before him and ask his advice and help in bringing the matter properly before the authorities. And after hearing their story, Bromwell asked for the names of the prisoners from which they received this information from. and advised him to remain silent as talking would interfere with quote-unquote catching the culprits. Days passed, and no arrests were made. The delegation once again visited Bramont, and he once again advised silence. 3 days later, Jones returned into jail to find that the prisoners had been taken away. On July 12th, Governor William P. Harvey, by the request of Mayor Bodenheim, put the town under martial law and dispatched 200 guardsmen, a dozen Texas Rangers, and for some reason, 5 airplanes, half of which did not make it to Longview due to mechanical failures. The guardsmen forced all to turn in weapons, including the Boy Scouts, and the Rangers arrested 20 whites, charging 17 of them with assault with attempt to murder, and charged all with arson. Half of these men were freed 2 weeks later. An article in the July 10th issue of the Defender covered the Walker lynching. Local whites believed the source of the article to be Jones, and although he denied being the source of the article, the 2 brothers of the woman Walker was found with attacked him. Jones managed to get away from his attackers and sought medical treatment at the office of Dr. Davis. Word then reached Jones that he and Davis would be lynched if they did not leave town immediately. Davis managed to convince 25 men to protect them, and they gathered at Jones's house. The mob showed up around midnight and called for Jones to come out. When they received no response, they attempted to force their way in, but Jones fired upon them. It was said that more than 100 shots followed in half an hour, and 4 of the mob fell with serious wounds. The mob quickly disbanded, and Davis managed to sneak back in the downtown district. While there, he heard survivors talking of returning to his home, but no one would step up and lead the trip. Simultaneously, a fire bell sounded throughout the rest of the night, eventually summoning 1,000 white men to the town square. But until sunrise, the leader's crowd wandered around the square aimlessly. Then at daybreak, the crowd broke into a hardware store, stealing ammunition, rifles, and pistols. Armed, the mob returned to Jones' house. Cautiously, they made sure the house was unoccupied and then set fire to the home. They then moved to Jones's office and destroyed the contents within it. Meanwhile, Davis fled to the home of his mother-in-law, which would be searched twice. The first time, he eluded them by hiding behind trash cans, and during the second search, he hid in the attic, watching, armed, and ready to shoot if necessary. His father told the searchers that they were not there, and when they looked in the attic, he offered them a ladder to go up. They replied, "Well, if you say he ain't here, we'll take your word for it." Davis left his father-in-law's house and managed to escape the town disguised as a soldier. Several hours later, Jones with a bandaged head also escaped safely. The mob moved through the neighborhood, setting fire to black homes, businesses, including Quick Hall. 4 people died in the rioting, including Marion Bush, Davis's father-in-law, who would be chased from his home and shot in a cornfield 3 miles south of Longview. Rangers also arrested the men who protected Jones. They would be held until August 13th and released under the condition that they never return to Longview. No one arrested from either race was ever tried. The crisis interpreted Longview's riot as indicative of the attitude which Negroes are determined to adopt for the future, being that the Negroes are not planning anything but will defend themselves if attacked. Dr. Calvin, Samuel Jones, and the black community dared ask that justice be served for Lemur Walkers. And when they refused to remain silent when justice was not given, racist whites attempted to put them back in their place. But they refused to be bullied into submission.